as the dust settles on Rachel Reeves' reinvention, shall we say, as a new growth-generating, optimistic, happy Chancellor. We've got one of Labour's rising stars here, Chris Curtis, Labour MP. You must have loved all that stuff. You run something called, what is it, the Growth Group? Tell us about that.
Yes, we're a group of Labour backbench MPs. There's over 100 of us, and we are constantly trying to work with and push the government to go further and faster.
Are you a thorn in the side of the government, or are you stooges put out there to roll the patch?
Look, we speak to people from businesses, from industry, from think tank worlds, and we basically come up with ideas that we think can unlock economic growth in this country, because we know it's the most important thing in order to get money into the pay packet.
So yesterday, Darren Jones sat in that very seat, and he basically said, "Look, everything's great, everything's fine. No, this isn't a reset. This isn't a, this is just a sort of a natural progression of the government's message." That's nonsense, though, isn't it? Because they spent months. Literally months, 6 months, talking down the country, saying everything's crap, saying that, the country's down the Swanee. And, it's had a knock-on effect. It's had a knock-on effect on hiring. It's had a knock-on effect on business confidence. It's had a knock-on effect at Christmas footfall. Growth has stalled. The government got it wrong for the first 6 months, didn't they?
I don't think that's quite a fair characterisation.
Well,
the first step to solving any problem is acknowledging you got one, right? And we did have to acknowledge when we came into office
but they slightly overcooked it, right?
that massive black hole that the economy had got. But also, the fact that we've basically had 14 years of people's wages not going up and the economy not growing.
Well, there's been 30 years of that,
the first step to solving any problem is acknowledging you got one. Fine. And what we heard from the Chancellor yesterday is, after we've acknowledged that problem, some of more steps that we're taking in order to make sure that we don't have another 14 years that are as bad for the economy as the last 14
So let's have a look
years.
at some of the things announced. So Heathrow, this has been a talking point for 25 years.
Yeah.
It's going to take another 25 years before a single plane takes off of a new runway.
Well, we're doing loads of things to see if we can squeeze timelines on projects like this. We know that's important.
The Oxford and Cambridge arc, fine, but Oxford and Cambridge already have 2 motorways and 2 train lines connecting them to the wider world.
You're forgetting about the most important bit of the arc there, but
what's that?
Milton Keynes.
Your neck of the woods. All right, I'll give you get 1 free hit on Milton Keynes. Fine. Look, these are all this is kind of tinkering around the edges, right?
No, I don't think that's true at all. I mean, the potential for the Oxford-Cambridge corridor, as we're calling it, is massive potential there. And I think there is a bit of a shift in policy there. The previous government used to talk down our universities. They used to talk down Oxford and Cambridge. This government...
Well, they all went there,
This government... Well, that's true. Yeah, that makes it even worse. This government acknowledges that it is one of the big selling points of this country. It is something that we can be proud of. It's one of the things that can get us international businesses.
But the point that Boris Johnson made used to be that, Oxford and Cambridge are already pretty well connected, already have a lot of infrastructure, and the rest of the country's been left behind. Is this now a pivot back to, basically looking after the South East and forgetting the North?
No, we need both at the same time.
You're not, though, because all the big things that were announced... OK, fine, you've given the green light to Man United to build a football stadium.
Yeah,
great.
Massive development.
Yeah, but, I mean, Manchester's already booming. You look at the... where's the investment in the rest of the country? You're investing in, basically, essentially, the bits of the country that the government knows.
I don't think that's quite fair at all. I mean, even if you take many of the investments that on paper are going into the south, the Lower Thames Crossing, for example, a lot of the economic benefit...
Again, London.
A lot of the economic benefit of that is right in the north of the country. Why? Because it will massively increase the ability to connect the north of the country to, for example, Dover and the continent. You take Heathrow, is it 60%, I think, of the economic development? The economic benefit of that is outside London and the South East. So even when you've got these projects in London and the South, a lot of the economic benefit will be felt right across the country. But I also reject the characterisation that all of these projects are in London and the South East. There's lots this government's doing in order to unlock investment right across the country. Let's
talk about how it's going to work, though. So you run this thing called the Growth Group. You're essentially a sort of the paramilitary wing of the Treasury, the new Treasury that are trying to get all this stuff doing. You're the anti-NIMBY faction of the Labour Party. But immediately yesterday, as soon as the Chancellor sat down, Sadiq Khan was out saying no to Heathrow. You basically run all of the mayoralties across the country at the moment, essentially, apart from Teesside. Those people are going to be anti lots of things in their own patches because they have to be re-elected by locals who are going to be opposed to these things. How are you going to do this when actually you're going to basically meet the same problems that every government has met, blue or red or yellow? Every time government tries to do something, it's met by local opposition, and when it comes down to it, they want to get re-elected, so they listen to the locals.
I think there are lots of mayors, if you think about Andy Burnham, who are really excited about the potential for investment and growth in their area. They're actively trying to
but
make
how
sure
are
they
you going to how are you
that.
going to sort of breed out the NIMBYism in Labour?
I think there's a lot less NIMBYism in the Labour Party than there is in a lot of the other parties.
I don't know, though, because you're winning you won the same seats that killed the last planning reform.
Look, we need to ensure, and we need to have politicians who are brave enough to say, no, actually, it's incredibly important for this country in order to make sure that we've got housing and development, including in my constituency. And if that involves difficult political conversations, we are willing to have them because it is in the patriotic interest of the country. I say this as a constituency MP. If that involves me having to have, in the middle of the Oxford-Cambridge Arc, as we just said, right, so a place where there's going to be a lot of extra development and housing, fully acknowledge that. I am willing to have those difficult political conversations.
And willing to lose your seat.
And willing to. I don't think I will lose my seat, because if you go and you have those difficult conversations with people, you're honest and you're open with people, you can get through it, because it's ultimately in the patriotic interest of this country to ensure we get Britain building.
You're a new MP, but coming down the track now, look, you have none of your intake. It's a big intake, but it's broad, but it's also you've got majorities aren't massive. On the whole, this is a parliament with the sort of lowest average majority for a government with the lowest average majority in a long time. Did you really believe that two things? One, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, are they really the new sort of big bang pioneers? And is there really the political will across all of your colleagues? I think the problem the country has is they just don't quite believe you're going to do this stuff.
So look, what I'll acknowledge is I'm not going to talk about the economic inheritance because you've heard enough about it, but it wasn't great.
Please.
Public service was great. But actually, the thing we don't talk about enough is the inheritance we've really got is a public that have lost patience in politics, in mainstream politics.
Of course.
And we have to turn that around. And that is why the kind of big bang moment, as you described it, is incredibly important.
But is it
because we've got a very short
or are you just
time
going to
frame.
get bogged down in arguments about
I think if anybody who was listening to the Chancellor's speech yesterday, anybody who heard that ambition, the amount she's signing off, the amount she's unlocking.
Do you believe it?
I believe it. Absolutely believe it.
Do you actually believe it, or
you don't just have to look at what we're saying. You can also look at what we're doing.
Which is what?
We're getting rid of. We're making dramatic changes to the planning system in order to make sure houses get built. In order to make sure that when you build HS2, you don't have to build the HS2s of the future, HS3, I suppose. You don't have to spend £100 million on a bat tunnel.
We know about the bat tunnel.
But we're making the rule changes in the upcoming planning and infrastructure bill to ensure that something like
But take Rachel Reeves, for example. When there's an airport in her own backyard in Leeds, and she blocked it when she was an MP. That's exactly what's going to happen.
And look, we are signing off projects, and you've seen the government announce that. We're making it a lot easier to build, so these projects can be done cheaply and efficiently in order to get investment in the UK. The Chancellor talked about that yesterday, but it's not just words. There are active actions that this government is taking in order to get.
Before I let you go to go and sell concrete over all of Milton Keynes in the interest of growth. How's it going though? You're a new MP. Your intake is massive. There's lots of very every time I see an MP now, I feel old. How's it going? It hasn't been a brilliant start for the government, has it?
I mean, none of us expected this to be easy. If it was easy, it'd all have been done.
Yeah, but it has to be. I mean, none of you expected, presumably, as the government to make it twice as hard if you have to go and sell absolute politically toxic decisions on the doorstep.
Look, I mean, I think one of the reasons, that I believe that politics, this country has got into the mess that it's got into, is ultimately because when there are hard decisions, politicians, people in politics, have ducked those hard decisions.
But you've made hard decisions. You've made a rod for your own back. Winter fuel, lying about Nix. All of these things. The trust is completely shot. And so when the Chancellor turns around and says, actually everything's fine and we're brilliant and this country's got great potential, no one quite believes her.
Yeah,
they've made it tough, right? How's it been? You must have had to eat some. I'm not going to swear, but you must have eaten some pretty crap sandwiches, right?
I came into politics in order to get the country going again. I know that's going to make some hard decisions. I know that's going to make some difficult decisions, but it's really, really important that we do.
Out of 10, how's the Labour government been for you so far?
12 or 13.
Oh, come on. Right, OK, right, get out. Chris Curtis, Labour Growth Group, rising star and the concreter of Milton Keynes. Good luck with that.
Don't phrase it that way.
Come back and see us soon.
Always will.
How it's going.